The candidate palooza, I guess you could say, continues. Again, it's that time of year where candidates, both local and statewide, are out hitting the trail. So we appreciate when they are willing to take a few minutes to come stop by and say hello and talk to our listeners. And joining us in studio right now is Kim Crockett. She vying for the Republican nomination for Secretary of State, almost said Attorney General, Secretary of State, to oppose current Secretary of State Steve Simon this November. Kim Crockett, welcome back to the Northern Alliance Radio Network. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Thanks for having me.
So how is the campaign faring thus far? Statewide race, what is it, 87 counties? And how many have you hit thus far, Kim Crockett?
87 counties. Well, we've been approaching it through the BPOU convention cycle.
Sure.
Things are going really well, by the way, to answer that question. It's been more enjoyable than I had imagined.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because Minnesota's a beautiful state. It's part of why I'm fighting. There is no other state like this with our lakes and our forests and our rich, farmland. And I get to see that driving around the state. I think I've put like 15,000 miles on my car. It's not just the BPOU conventions. And let's explain what that means.
Sure.
Basic political operating unit. It's the most awkward thing. It's like, could we please call it something else? But these are the Senate districts that organize post-caucus, post-precinct level, around the state in the Republican Party. And so we've hit, as many conventions around the state as we can. And the congressional district convention started a couple weeks ago with CD2 and CD5. We've got those behind us. And April 23rd, a week from Saturday, we will have 4 congressional district conventions.
Wow.
CD1, CD3, CD4, and CD6. And I will be there.
Okay.
I mean, there have been weekends where there were, 30 conventions or whatever, and my team did their best to hit 30 out of 33 one weekend, and we had 18 one weekend, and I hit 8 of them, and the team was absolutely at all of them. So we're having a blast. I am humbled by the kind of talent that has been attracted to to Team Kim or Team Crockett, whatever you want to call it. We have guys from every military service, retired, the Marines, the Air Force, the Navy, and a young Army officer in training who are helping with our strategic plan so that we can cover the state, but also make sure we pick up the phone and call delegates. That's our constituency right now, are the people vying to be state delegates, CD and state delegates. So to wrap it up, we're doing really well on our read of the delegate count. I don't know if you saw the release of the financial reports that we had to turn in on Monday, Thursday, which I think is an obnoxious deadline, by the way.
Yeah.
So we got Monday, Thursday state reports for candidates, FEC reports due on Good Friday.
Oh, my goodness.
And our taxes.
Yeah,
Although
right.
I guess they can be booked on Monday, but it's like our government has become deaf to major Christian.
That doesn't sound like our government, Kim Crockett.
Yeah. So we're having, the people that I get to meet right now, Brad, are amazing folks. It's not just the people that you and I have known for years who are involved in the Republican Party or the conservative or libertarian movement because of 2020, where there's this overwhelming sense that something went sideways with the 2020 election.
Would you say that was your motivation for getting in this race, Kim Crockett?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For such a time as this is the way I put it.
Yes.
To people. There's credentials that got built over the last 30 years. I just didn't know that this is what it was leading to. But what I'm finding at these BPOU and CD conventions is that I'll ask people, how many of you are new to the political process? And it's between 60 and 75% of the hands.
Really?
And then the next question I ask is, if I remember, is how many of you are here because of election integrity issues? And it's practically the whole room.
Okay.
Including our veterans who've been working year in and year out in the political process, doing all that hard work of caucus and BPOU conventions, because it's thankless.
Sure.
And they don't get paid, and
right.
And people like to criticize them, and some of them deserve criticism because of their process. But there's an excitement out there. And so the people that are going to be in Rochester at my endorsing convention in less than a month,
going up quick.
A lot of them are new, Brad.
Yeah, right.
And so the challenge is, how do we keep? I'm hoping some delegates, new and old, are listening to this. How do we keep them engaged? People are running for school board and state office and statewide office like me. I'm not new to you. I'm an outsider though to public office, but I've got an inside track, right? Because I've been working policy and advocacy for 15 plus years as a lawyer and a policy analyst in Minnesota. So how do we keep that momentum going past 2022?
So speaking of,
it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you alluded to, the fact Secretary of State's office, one of the constitutional offices, I would venture to say, people outside of their own state wouldn't know the names of individual secretaries of state in other states until this past election cycle, because all of a sudden, a lot of them, unwittingly or not, were inserting themselves in the news because of these election integrity issues. Mm-hmm. What specifically in Minnesota should citizens have been concerned about? Because we recall back to just prior to Election Day, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was they were putting like a COVID provision, and I use COVID provision in scare quotes because I think the judge's ruling there's no pandemic exception to the Constitution. That
was Kavanaugh.
Yeah, they were allowing, I guess it was absentee ballots or whatnot to still be accepted even after Election Day as long as they're postmarked. That was a unilateral move done by the Secretary of State's office. Can't do that, Kim Crockett.
Right. Yeah. Well, COVID was used as a cover for a lot of unlawful things. Mm-hmm. I call 2020 unlawful or lawless is how I put it.
Fair.
All designed, in my opinion, to put the thumb on the scale for Steve Simon's political party. They call it the DFL. I call them social democrats. They're socialist democrats or progressives. They don't represent farmers anymore. They don't represent private labor. They're totally in the bag for public sector unions, of course.
Oh, yes.
So they're done. They're socialist democrats or progressives, call them what you will, but they used COVID as a cover to do a number of things. And what you're alluding to is something that Steve Simon did. He cut a deal with a guy named Mark Elias, who's the head of the Democracy Docket. That group is basically the advanced legal team for the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. Mark Elias is also Hillary Clinton's lawyer in 2016 and law partners with a guy named Andrew Sussman. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Got indicted by the FBI got indicted by the Department of Justice or the special prosecutor, what's his name, Durham, for lying to the FBI about the Steele dossier. These are the people that Steve Simon is hanging out with. So he cut a deal. Elias filed many suits around the country, one against Steve Simon here. And the Attorney General's office and Simon cut a deal in Ramsey County Court called a consent decree. What did it do? It extended the 2020 election by 7 days, and it waived two critical safeguards for absentee ballots. Number one, a postmark.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty vital, I would say.
Postmark.
I mean, if you're going to say, hey, this was a postmarked election day, so we can still count it, but if there's going to be no postmark,
right? And then a witness signature on the absentee ballot. So, it's just a free, like what the heck? Let's just it's whatever. That's the sloppy. So at the end of the day, what you can conclude from that consent decree is Steve Simon doesn't care about election integrity. We can wrap that around his neck fairly. Now that led to a lawsuit. There were actually a couple in play, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on why the RNC and our own party dropped a suit about that. but it had to do with stuff that was going on at the Supreme Court. Good or bad decision, I think it was a bad one to drop it, but they did. But along came some heroes. Representative Eric Lucero, in his capacity as a Trump elector, along with a guy named Jim Carlson, who's a longtime CD4 political activist, good guy. They served as plaintiffs in a suit as Trump electors.
Remember that?
To sue Steve Simon and say, you can't do that. You just circumvented the state legislature, the state constitution, and the U.S. Constitution. And they went into federal court, and the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals ultimately ruled those electors are right. Steve Simon, and they excoriated Simon in the opinion. So people keep saying, well, why didn't he get punished? I mean, people are tired of elected officials playing fast and furious with just our basic sense of fairness,
right? Let
alone the law. Like, Kim, what are we going to do about this? And the answer is because Biden was, Biden was won. Stumbling there because, I don't know if he did or he didn't. Because Biden was declared the winner in Minnesota, that lawsuit went poof.
Sure.
There was no practical effect for it. It became what's called moot.
Once again, we are joined in studio by Kim Crockett. She vying for the Republican nomination for Minnesota Secretary of State. Back with one final short segment with Kim in studio. Go nowhere. Hey, welcome back. AM 1280 Northern Alliance Radio Network with me, Brad Carlson. Hope you and yours are having a blessed Easter Sunday. Finishing up our discussion with Kim Crockett, she vying for the Republican nomination for Minnesota Secretary of State. And I'd be remiss if I didn't cover a logistical item. KimSOS.com is the website, Kim? KimSOS, okay.
Isn't that cool?
I love it.
KimSOS.com.
SOS has so many different connotations in this aspect, Kim Crockett. So very ingenious. So, we did mention how next month, or actually a little less than 4 weeks from now, the Minnesota State Convention for the Republican Party will be taking place down in Rochester. Are you abiding by the party endorsement, Kim Crockett, even if you don't happen to receive it?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer in that.
All right. No clarifications, no disclaimers. You're abiding by the endorsement. Okay.
Abide by the endorsement.
It's on the record, folks. So, okay. So, again, KimSOS.com is a website, your one-stop shop for everything, and including if you like what you hear thus far and like to throw some money into the pot, you certainly can. I think regardless of who the candidate ends up being for Secretary of State on the Republican side, definitely an upgrade from Steve Simon, as you're hearing Kim talk about. We did leave off last segment, Kim Crockett, with the lawsuit that was brought by a couple of Trump electors, and because Biden ended up winning the state, really not a whole lot was pursued on that end. So looking forward, what other aspects of the office are there of Secretary of State? People think Secretary of State, they think election integrity. Certainly an important part about it, but there's so much to the office that you'll probably have covered in some stump speeches. Kim Crockett, why don't you share with us a little bit?
Yeah, but I would actually like to stick with election integrity because we don't have a state.
That is important,
and we do not have a republic.
Please do
not have election integrity. The business service side, Brad, I've been polling people all over the state. I've been a lawyer for decades. I've done a lot of work with the Secretary of State's office, actually, with filings and so forth. There is some work to be done there, but it all pales in comparison to election integrity.
That's fair. Yeah.
I want to find out how the people of Minnesota really vote. So let's start with what would happen if I were Secretary of State. And let me just point out that the Secretary is a constitutional officer listed in our Constitution right after the governor.
Okay.
Before the Attorney General. That was on purpose, I think, because back then people understood that the administration of elections was absolutely critical to our freedoms as a self-governing people. Now, the office is not supposed to make law, though there is rulemaking authority. And again, Simon, whom I call Simon Says, has been coloring outside of the lines. This is something Kiffmeyer has complained about, our former Secretary of State, now Senator in charge of elections, as well as other legislators, if you take the statutory language in certain rules, he plays games with it. So if I'm sworn in next January, I'm going to immediately meet with all 87 county auditors, whether they're appointed or elected, and say there is a new sheriff in town, and we are going to be sticking to statutory law. The Secretary of State should not be changing the law to fit what he or she prefers.
Right.
For example, not following the political party balance rule when absentee ballots are counted. Simon has led the county auditors astray, and unfortunately the statutory language is sloppy and needs to be redone. So he has allowed in 2020 6 out of 10 votes to be counted by county ballot boards that do not have a Democrat and Republican sitting there looking at these things.
Okay.
Which is what I believe the legislature intended.
Right.
And Simon damn well knows that because he was in the legislature at the time, right? But this is something the legislature needs to fix. But in the meantime, as Secretary of State, I could say to those auditors, I expect you to follow the party balance rule. Absolutely. I also will be directing local election officials and county auditors to deny Zuckerberg access to their offices. He has shifted now from directly funding election operations. It's called Zuckbucks or Zuckerbucks in 2020. And he's kind of going around the back door now with an $80 million program to help local election officials with their databases and their websites.
Of course.
And their effectiveness. And you should see that. Go look it up. Center for Tech and Civic Life, guys. It's creepy. So instead of coming through the front door like they did under the cover of COVID in 2020, they're sneaking around the back door to run elections for our country.
Do you think that that's going to be ginned up again? Because there has been a spike in COVID cases. And do you think that's going to be a factor again where people are going to...
You know, who's running around in masks?
Yeah.
Our governor. You know, I haven't followed Simon around, but
not
he's
trying
probably
to
got one to whip out of his pocket, too. So that's the first thing I would do
to
immediately improve. Because remember, we're going to have 2024 right in front of us.
That's true.
Next January. And those elections have to be run with integrity and run well. The other thing I would do is immediately go to the legislature. Now, because I've already been working with the legislature as a policy person for quite some time, and before I announced, but also after, because I know this stuff, that package is pretty much set to go.
Okay.
And it'll take a little bit of time legislatively to get things done. What? Voter ID, provisional ballots, no more 46 days of voting.
Okay.
That just leads to chaos, unnecessary expense, and it reduces our confidence in the outcome. When you have 6 out of 10 or even 3 out of 10 votes, first of all, being counted by bureaucrats.
Right.
So we go and we fix things from a legislative standpoint. What people don't realize, and I think this includes a lot of people who are vying for a Republican endorsement, that as soon as we pass that package of reforms that we all want, all of us vying for endorsement want, the Biden Department of Justice is going to be like the hounds of hell released on us through the Voting Rights Division at DOJ. They're going to call us Jim Crow 2.0.
Of course. Jim Eagle, that was another vapid line the president put forth. So yeah,
we're going to have to stand strong. This is why I think the person who gets the endorsement should be an attorney with a deep network of people to call on to help us resist the litigation and the condemnation that the corporate media will whip out against us as Republicans in Minnesota. They'll be accusing us of trying to suppress the black vote and all those other things. And of course, those are false accusations. They're just trying to shut us up and stop us.
Yeah, anytime there's a push for voter ID, that talking point comes out. Yeah.
It's the most racist thing I've ever heard in my life. You know, I mean, that's just blatant. Anyway, so that gives you a flavor of what I would want to do. But just keep in mind that and I wish Simon would, that the legislature is the one that is responsible for setting our laws. Correct. Not the Secretary of State's office. Just as the governor, you know, is passive in the sense that until a bill gets to his or her desk, you know, it's not law yet.
Right.
So you got to know your role in the constitutional scheme. So that's what a Crockett Secretary of State's office would look like. And it would be so exciting to clean things up. And my goal, Brad, is to restore everyone's confidence in elections, not just Republicans, but Democrats as well. Because then maybe Thanksgiving can be peaceful again.
Kim, we appreciate the time. Once again, Kim Crockett vying for the Republican nomination for Minnesota Secretary of State. KimSOS.com is your website. Kim, have a blessed Easter. Thanks for checking in.
Same to you, Brad.
Back and with another segment on the broadcast. Go nowhere.